Hi, I'm Rana Morgan, and I'm here at the Sleep Center, and we're visiting with Dr. Hajal. Dr. Hajal, there are several sleep disorders that affect people. Could we talk about those? Like one of them is narcolepsy. I don't understand what narcolepsy is.
Narcolepsy is a neurological disease, which means it's a brain malfunction. What happens is that there is the centers of the brain that usually orchestrate the sleep are not functioning very well. So there is no cyclical changes. So we don't go into sleep and then we would wake up. What happens is that the sleep can intrude at any part of the wakefulness.
So they don't have a normal sleep cycle.
That's true, because the center in the brain that orchestrates all of this is not there. So there's a little bit of free-flowing. In addition, when they do fall asleep, they don't sleep heavy either, and they don't get restful sleep because of the narcolepsy. And now it's been linked to one specific hormone in the brain called hypocretin that was diagnosed around 2000 or 2001, that this is the hormone that is lacking, which orchestrates the sleep in our brains.
So the symptoms would be falling asleep in the middle of the day?
The symptoms of narcolepsy are quite typical, mainly falling asleep throughout the day, which is the #1 complaint that people show up to. And there's a misconception out there that it has to be a sleep attack, which means you're doing anything that you want and all of a sudden you feel that you have to sleep, which could be true, but most of the time those people cannot function. They get up in the morning not feeling well, and throughout the day they feel sleepiness. So that's a #1 symptoms. Another symptom is called cataplexy, which means when they're doing something and they feel a little bit emotional about what they're doing, or laughter sometimes tells them a joke, they feel like they're gonna fall to the ground, their knees buckle, and they could fall to the ground. And this is without falling asleep, just muscle weakness.
So they just go lax?
Exactly.
With laughter or tears?
With laughter or any emotions. And you can imagine that if this starts in childhood, it's so hard to tell why the child would actually fall to the ground. And when they do grow up and they're 21 and showing up in our office, sometimes to complain about it, they have had those symptoms since they were children, so they don't even know what is normal, what is not anymore. So that's one. Another one that's very common is sleep paralysis, which means they would wake up and not being able to move at all. They're completely frozen. They cannot move their muscles even though they are awake. They frequently can move their eyes and look around the room. And this could last for just 2 or 3 minutes. But to the person going through it, it could seem an eternity.
But that would be terrifying, wouldn't
it? It would be very terrifying. And this frequently is the reason why they would show up sometimes.
Now, you said that children get narcolepsy. Is
Right.
that typical?
It is typical because we think that at some point in childhood they would lose this center. And frequently when
they
we
would
diagnose
lose the
center that orchestrates the sleep. And frequently when we see people and we start asking them, they can trace it back to when they were teens. They say, yeah, I was showing some signs there, but it may not mature. It'll become a full picture of narcolepsy, usually in their 20s.
Puberty? Does it hit
I would think
puberty?
around puberty is when the symptoms show up, yeah.
Okay, and so a lot of times they don't know that that's what's affecting them.
No, and I feel very good when I diagnose somebody very early, because sometimes their schooling could be affected. So you have somebody who's labeled to be lazy by their teacher, and then what they have is actually narcolepsy. And it's very nice, fulfilling to diagnose somebody who's 16, and you can alter their schooling and their whole life when we diagnose them early, as opposed to diagnosing somebody who's 55 or something.
So a child might be labeled as lazy, but they wouldn't be manifesting the most dramatic symptoms of it, right?
That's true, which makes it harder. So the first symptoms would be sleepiness, which could be, labeled as lazy. But you could have other sleep disorders, and this is what we should caution the teachers about that, about if somebody is not really participating in class, falling asleep, there could be other reasons. There could be social reasons, but also medical reasons for them to behave like that.
And it can also be very dramatic. Like I had a friend who had it, and she fell asleep driving her car in the middle of the day.
Oh, yes.
And hit a parked car.
And this is terrible. There's so many people who get into car accidents for narcolepsy, and that's the problem, is that they are undiagnosed. They never really showed up to get that worked up. And unfortunately, that's how they show up after a car accident. And the highway patrolman makes them come in to get the workup.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Thank you.